you never burn a bridge with somebody. Because in life, you're gonna always, I don't care how hard you try to do what's right or to be nice or to do the right thing, you're always gonna run into opposition. You know, everybody's not gonna like you. And I just learned, and I think from all my life having to deal with people in one way or another in the church or in sales or especially in politics, which is, I always say, is a blood sport, you just have to learn that you never know which bridge you're gonna have to cross again. I'm Joyce Perkins. I am 77 years old, and my family was raised in the Midwest, in Indianapolis. I was born in Indianapolis. My father and mom were both born in the Midwest. There are 5 children, 4 girls. I'm the youngest of 4 girls, and I had a younger brother. My father was a pastor, and so we moved a couple of times. We moved from Indianapolis to California, California back to Indianapolis, and finally ending in 1957, again in Northern California. My father would move us because he would take churches. We finally ended up in Richmond, California, where he established the church. I was raised in the church. Our whole life was church, 6 days a week. I didn't particularly like being a pastor's child because you live in a fishbowl. People scrutinize your every move, and it just makes you feel that you're always on display. I did like being in the church for the fact of learning all the scriptures because those sustained me through my life. One of the challenges, though, was that it was a fundamentalist Pentecostal church, which means that you didn't do anything but go to church. We didn't dance, we didn't go to the show, we didn't go to games. Everything was church, and so growing up and wanting to feel a part of things, you felt like you were just different. But we made accommodations. We sang, we were very creative. My mom was an entertainer. She entertained people from all over the country because my father knew people from all over the country. She taught us very young, us girls, how to sew, how to cook. From age probably 9, I started sewing. I sewed all my clothes up through high school, college, marriage, up until I had children. Also, we had an opportunity, as I said, to learn a lot about people, and I think that that informed my life. In Indianapolis, we lived in a predominantly white neighborhood, but there was always a challenge being one of 2 black families in an all-white working class neighborhood. And of course, my mom, her sisters, her brother, they all went to college. They had at least 2 years of college, what they called secretarial college. My uncle, her brother, finished 4 years of college. My grandmother's mother, my maternal grandmother, finished college at one of the normal schools, one of the black colleges. But when she moved to Indianapolis, she couldn't teach. So she ended up doing day work. So that was kind of the way it was. My maternal grandfather looked white, and he was an electrician, so he could actually get work if he just let people think he was whatever they thought he was. So that's the way they made it, and that's the way it was. My father was a very gentle man. I don't remember him ever saying anything unkind about anybody. He would say, "Joyce, all flesh is grass." And every night at the table, he would quote a scripture before we ate. He was an intellectual. He was very well spoken, but he never put himself above other people. My mother had a different disposition than my father. I would say that you never had to second guess what was on her mind because she would let you know. But people loved her, and she loved people. She loved the church. They were partners. So that's my family, 4 girls, 1 boy, my mom and my dad, a very close-knit family. Well, as a young adult, after I finished high school, my goal was to go to college and be a professional. I was dead focused on that. I went to community college when I graduated from high school, did my prerequisites, and all of my sisters had gone to colleges in the Bay Area: Berkeley, University of San Francisco, Cal State, Alameda. But when I graduated from community college, I wanted to go to a historic Black college. And I wanted to go to Howard. I had a cousin, a distant cousin, who worked at Howard. I told my mom, I promise I'll go to church every Sunday. I want to go to DC to Howard. And she said, well, these Bay Area schools were good enough for your sisters, they're good enough for you. So I went to San Francisco State in the late 60s, and she probably wishes she had sent me to Howard because, and I'm glad I went, because I was there to see the whole social revolution. I mean, I met Dr. King. He came to our college when I was in community college, and I worked from day one, I worked all through college. So I was working the door at the event, and he was talking about the needs, the civil rights movement, what we needed to do. I was fascinated. Heard Malcolm X at the Richmond Auditorium. I met Stokely Carmichael. In fact, I danced with him at an Alpha party. And the Panthers, the Cleavers, Eldridge Cleaver, Kathleen Cleaver, everybody was there in the Bay Area. And I'm seeing all this cultural transition. I mean, friends that were cheerleaders are now living in communes, and it was just a real change of pace. I had already met my husband in Los Angeles at a party that I crashed. I came down here to visit, and my cousin said that the Qs, the Omega Psi Phi's having a party in Lafayette Square, we have to go. So we went. Turned out it was not a frat party. It was my now husband's party. It was a going away party. He was going to Vietnam. And so my cousin I was with had known him, grown up around the corner from him in Watts, but hadn't seen him in years. So she introduced me, and I whispered, I'm gonna marry him. And the next day he came and visited me. My mother said, come home this weekend or don't come home. And so I had to fly home. He flew to Oakland to ship out. So I had a chance to see him a couple of times and before he left. And I wrote him every day for a year. But anyway, so that's the context. He's in Vietnam. I'm at San Francisco State, and he was in the service. He did 2 tours in Vietnam as a paratrooper, did one of the first combat drops in Vietnam. And when he came home, I was working at the bank. I had just graduated. They had asked me to go into officer training school at the bank, and I said, no, I'm moving to Los Angeles. And he came home a month early, came into my bank. I packed my little Toyota Corona and moved that same day. We dated again for about 1.5 years, then we got married in 1970. And this year we celebrated our 53rd wedding anniversary. Oh, well, I have Paul Jr., who is the oldest. In fact, he will have his 50th birthday this month. And then there's Justin, who was born on my husband's birthday. They both went to college, I'll say first of all, raising 2 young Black men in Los Angeles in the 80s was not easy because there was a lot of things happening. Both of them were stopped by the police and put on the ground, you know, because there was a lot of stuff going on. And I just told them, you have to stay focused. I don't want you to go around with a chip on your shoulder, but you have to know that you're not going to be given the benefit of the doubt all the time. So you have to be smarter, you have to work harder, and stay focused. And they did. And so both of them, fortunately, are married, have wonderful daughters-in-law. I don't have any daughters, but I have 2 daughters-in-law that are like daughters. Dawn's married to Justin, Autumn's married to Paul, and I have these wonderful grandchildren. 2 sons are what I call bonus grandchildren because they're from my daughter-in-law's first marriage. And then, of course, I have 2 that are just biological. As soon as I finished college, I moved to Los Angeles and became a social worker. I did that for 5 years. I worked with abused children, and that was hard because I brought it home with me. I was a court dependency worker. I had a car accident while I was working, and I was carrying my oldest child. I was pregnant, and so the doctor didn't allow me to go back to work for a year. I stayed at home, I had my second child, and then that's when I went from the public sector to the private sector. I sold real estate, and so I just thought, I'm gonna be real good at this. And of course, I was in a great market in the late 70s. You could tie a gorilla to a phone and they could sell a few houses, you know. And so I bought my house, and then I started doing volunteer work. And I think that is when I met some people that really helped inform my professional life. One of the persons was Councilwoman Ruth Galanter, who says that she discovered me. And that is when I met you, Valerie Shaw. There was a transportation problem, a traffic problem near my house. I live right off La Brea. And there were lots of accidents. People were turning left off of that street where traffic's moving 60 miles an hour. There were accidents, fatalities, and I kept talking to people in the city, nothing happened. And one of the ladies up the hill, who was president of a homeowners association, said, you know, Joyce, you're just a single voice, you need a constituency. So I formed the Veronica Sanchez Sycamore Block Club, created a constituency, wrote a petition, walked the petition to every single house, made a map of everybody's response, and I presented it to Councilwoman Ruth Galanter. And she got on it. Then I just found myself sitting on Councilwoman Galanter's planning board. I ended up chairing the Community Advisory Committee for the revision of the plan. I chaired the CAC, Community Advisory Committee for the redevelopment project area, and just loved learning about land use, transportation, economic development. And I found myself then on commissions, the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Environmental Affairs Commission, and Metro Transportation Commission. And I loved it. And so finally, when I was writing, as a part of the plan revision process, we were writing a specific plan for Crenshaw. And that's when I met another friend who was very informative in my life, my professional life, Marlene Grossman. And she was working with us to write the plan. And shortly after that, of course, the civil unrest occurred. And Councilwoman Galanter created Rebuild Crenshaw, which I worked with her on. But I must say that after all the work that we did on the community plan and the specific plan, I was just absolutely in tears when I saw the devastation. But it showed me something. It showed me that the people in the neighborhoods, which were not damaged, didn't feel an ownership to the corridor, to the businesses, to what was really the economic vitality of their neighborhoods. And that bothered me. I knew something needed to be done about that. About that time, Marlene Grossman invited me to join a group, Los Angeles Transit Partners, which was a coalition between Crenshaw area workers, activists, and West Side. And so our focus was meeting with elected officials to gain support to put a subway line down Crenshaw and to extend it out Wilshire to UCLA and the museum and the Veterans complex. And we helped to write, the mayor's office to write the proposal, received $2.5 million. So we founded Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative. And I was the founding executive director. And it was a 3-year demonstration project in 8 transit-dependent neighborhoods. But the work we were doing was so good, and it was building leadership, and we were allowing the community to have a say in selecting architects and how to use their funding within guidelines so that they, instead of just the city coming in and doing it, they had a voice in it. And they had a chance to see what it takes to get permits, what it takes to get engineering done. And we helped create merchants associations and business improvement districts because I was able to not only bring money, seed money to neighborhoods that attracted additional funding for that neighborhood that had been, had been overlooked. But it also built leadership in those communities where before they kind of looked up to the elected officials almost as demigods. And I would have to remind them, these people work for you. This is your money, this is your city. You have a say. And so I felt that I had an opportunity to show them how to have a say, to show them respectfully how to ask for what they want and to get it. And so that has been the highlight of my professional career. It was a real honor when the city dedicated the Joyce Perkins Parkway to me. It began when I went to City Council. I was about to retire, and they gave me a plaque, a commemorative plaque, for my work with the Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative. And at that time, they announced that they were dedicating a parkway to me, and I was just floored. We had the dedication out at the parkway. Valerie, you were there, my family, friends, board members. A lot of people were there to see it, and my husband was there when they took the drape off of it. And yeah, that's my legacy, and that's a legacy for my family, having the parkway there. And it was only the second parkway dedicated in the city at that time. The only other one was to Robert Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel.